Welcome to the Generation Elevation podcast, a conscious, connected platform for those who are ready to manifest their dream life. I'm your host, Elise Riley, a former PT, now motivational speaker, igniting empowerment and transformation all across the globe. Here at Generation Elevation, we are committed to bringing you the most inspiring guests who will share their stories, wisdom, and advice to help you progress closer to living a life of your own terms. Welcome back to another episode of the Generation Elevation podcast. Now, today I have someone who is incredibly impressive on my show today. Now, he has coached over 4,000 people. He opened 3 gyms by the age of 22. He's doing 7 figures in revenue per year. He's also invested $400,000 in personal development and self-growth, and has over 300 million views on his content on social media. Now, I know that these are all just amazing achievements that he has actually achieved in his career. But I also really am excited to have this guy on today because he's actually just a really genuine, authentic person, like a dog dad. He's a husband to a beautiful wife and just a downright, like, down-to-earth person, and I'm really excited to have him on my show today. So with that said, I'd like to introduce to you Lewis Huckstep. Hello, Lewis. How are you today?
Hello, Queen. Good to see you again. We've obviously met each other before and been watching you from a distance and seeing you elevate and crush it and help people evolve. I was watching some of your content before we jumped on this, so pleasure to be here and keen to get down deep and dirty on this.
Let's go. Yeah, so for those of you listening, Lewis and I have met at like several personal development events in the past in the Gold Coast, because you're still in the Gold Coast, yeah?
Yep, still there.
Yeah. And Lewis has been crushing the game with content, and hence why I wanted to reach out to him and have him on my show today, because he knows all things self-development, personal growth, inner work. So we're really going to go delving deep into this today. So if you're listening to this and you're at the start of your personal development journey, you want to learn how to become the best version of yourself, you want to elevate, then this podcast is going to be for you. So stay tuned. Now, Lewis, right, I just listed all of like these amazing accolades for you. I'd love to hear about your story, your journey, like going from all these amazing things, right? How did you start?
I guess I generally start with childhood because that's where the seeds get planted that will sprout many, many years, sometimes decades later, and forms a purpose. But for me, I got diagnosed with Asperger's, ADHD, and autism when I was younger. I grew up in a very emotionally volatile upbringing through parents' abuse, mental, emotional, physical traumas were gifted to me. And I just downloaded a lot of limitations that I wasn't enough, that I have to achieve things externally to make myself enough internally. And that manifested in me being an overachiever, where I would just, my whole life, I would always have to try, achieve and be the best person in the room. In sports, I was following an athletic pathway. That's where I first started, which probably resonates with you and your story. And I was contracted with NRL teams for people in London, professional rugby teams, a league, we call it over here. So I was contracted at an early age, and I just became so obsessed with achieving, and it was always pushing the goalpost back. I got into the fitness industry. I had some injuries, kind of lost the passion for sports, and that transitioned into business. Got into business. I worked for free for 2.5 years at this gym, bought into half of the gym. I did network marketing during the time, so I worked for free at the gym, but built a network marketing business, was earning 6 figures at 19. I was flying around the country to speak on stages for it. And then that turned into owning gyms. So I bought the gym at 20, second one at 21, third one at 22. And just to clarify something you said at the start, we were doing 7 figures in revenue then. I'm not doing 7 figures right now in my new business that I'm building, but I was doing 7 figures in revenue back then. But it was all out of insecurity. It was all out of, I need to achieve to be enough. And it was just the form the ego can overcompensate for, is to become an overachiever. And that was me. And The business was built on sand. We hit a breaking point. Me personally, I remember I had a phone call. I shared it in a book that we might touch on later, but I just remember the businesses were fucked. I was like running sessions at one gym in the morning, running the other one in the afternoon, doing all the lead gen and sales throughout the day, like spinning 1,000 plates to try to keep them alive. And it was fucking it's fucked. I found some screenshots it's in the book as well of like I was literally lived off 4 to 5 hours of sleep for 7 years. Like I look back and I'm like, fuck that. And I sacrificed health, friendships. My heart was very closed off, and I was very good at taking action and like listening to like I had no dramas of like listening to a coach or a mentor to tell me what do I need to do tactically, and I'd go do it. But I never really addressed the inner stuff and the inner work. And I hit a breaking point. Long story short, I ended up giving one of my businesses away. Just literally gave it to my business partner. I had a phone call with a potential buyer. He pulled out. I broke down in tears, couldn't handle it. Gave that business back to my business partner. Then I had two gyms. Went through COVID with two physical gyms, brick and mortar gyms. That was fucking fun. So had to fire 15 people in one day. I was like crying doing it because I love humans. I love my team. So that was fun. And went through that heaps of lessons. Ended up selling the second one about a year into that. And then I got myself out, and I was earning 2,000 to 3,000 bucks a week for 1 hour of work. And I had all this time and space. And this whole time I was doing heaps of self-growth, mentorships, masterminds, and I was starting to really delve into the deep inner stuff, the inner healing, the trauma, the wounds, the limitations, the plant medicines, just heaps of deeper spiritual stuff. And I found my purpose. I got clear on my mission, my vision. I was healing wounds, healing traumas. I was rewiring beliefs that weren't serving me. And the gyms just weren't my path. And I got my purpose. I know what it is. I got clarity on what it is. And I've been coaching people for total 10 years, but full time in this business for 2.5 years. So I've been building up this business. So it's like 12 months, just trying different business models. I ran like a weekend event and did like a 6-week challenge, did like a 10-week challenge. And I was just like tasting different business models and sold high ticket programs. And now I have a conscious community. That's my main product that I offer right now. And the last 7 months I've been writing a book. So I've been putting all those lessons, failures, self-growth into a book so you don't have to fucking go through the hoops that I went through. And yeah, I help people access their true potential and feel deep fulfillment by finding purpose, doing the inner work, and yeah, being tactical too. Because as inner work and transformational I'm very strategic. I'm very practical. I'm very structured. I'm very planned out. So I've kind of got that integration of the spiritual woo-woo healing shit and then the tactical, what's your plan, what's your systems, what's your processes. And that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Oh, I love that. Really resonate with your story. Like it's slightly different, but just, yeah, the ups, the downs, I completely get it. And how it's brought you then to this beautiful practice that you do now. I definitely resonate with between the like bridge between logic and spiritual and finding that in between. I think that is really important. And so for those who are listening, how would you describe inner work? Like, what does that specifically mean to you?
Beautiful. So my definition for that is inner work is healing and dissolving the blockages that are masking your true self. So many people have heard the Statue of David quote before, where it's Michelangelo, if you're not familiar with it, made the Statue of David. Someone asked him, how'd you make such a beautiful statue? He said, paraphrase, and I've got this quote in my book. It's not a single historical reference of this. So he's just been credited this quote somehow. But the quote is, David was always in the statue. I just had to chip away everything that wasn't him. So for me, that's very much what inner work is. And there's different bodies that we have wounds and traumas in. There's mental wounds, which is what most people, I think of trauma, like memories, past hurt, perceptions, beliefs. They're all in the mental world of things, the mental body. There's the emotional body, which is your nervous system and your emotions. And there's the physical body, which is somatics. If people have heard of the word somatic or somatic work, that's the physical body. And then you've got the spiritual body, which is your level of consciousness, connectiveness to everything. I've got a little mushroom on my desk at all times because I'm a big plant medicine fan. And then there's another body. It's called the energetic body. I worked with a Reiki healer for 6 months just to experience it. And the quotes that I love, that I speak in quotes, as you'll probably figure that out for the listeners, but Bruce Lee's got this awesome one that I love for this. He says, there's no ultimate martial art, only the ultimate martial artist who knows every martial art and knows when to pull from the right one at the right time to get the right result. So for me, healing is about, there's no ultimate martial art. There's no ultimate modality to heal. There's fucking tons of ways to heal. I'm sure you've done plenty. I know you've done plenty. I've done plenty as well. There's NLP, there's timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, there's DeMartini facilitation, there's breath work, there's meditation, there's Reiki healing, sound healing, crystal healing, plant medicine. Like I'd probably just rabbled off 10 or 20. So
Yeah.
like there's fucking heaps. I actually did a post because in the book I've got like a list of like all these modalities of like ones I've tried, ones I'm trained in, and ones that I just haven't tried yet. And I
Mm.
put a post on my Instagram, and there was like 400 comments of I just said like, what modalities have you done? And there was fucking heaps, and there was some I've never heard of before. So I got to learn what other things there are out there. But yeah, its inner work is addressing the things that are masking your fullness, your potential, your fulfillment. The ego comes into that, which is for me the identity of who you view yourself to be. And it's just identifying those things that just don't serve you, the things that are holding you back, limiting you. I like the quote, your light shines brightest when you let it shine freely. So it's removing all of those things that are dimming your own light, right? So yeah, and that's the art of it. And then by being aware of triggers, being aware of blocks, being aware of like, I guess what reveals those wounds, you can then lean into it with consciousness and tools, heal through it, and then get more access to yourself. So hope that
Oh,
answers your question.
beautiful. Yeah, no, that was great. And I have definitely several questions that I know the listeners will be thinking about as you've just said this, right? So for me, I would really love to know, like, when you say healing, I think there's a big misconception, even for people listening, that it's like something's wrong with you and that like you have to continually be doing these things to heal what is wrong.
Yeah.
And I think there's like a massive, I'd love to hear your opinion on this, like a massive thing in the industry where people are kind of addicted to some sort of healing because of a problem rather than actually just, like you said, discovering who they are.
Yeah, perfect. And I totally agree. And it's kind of a paradox, but there's truth to both sides. So I believe that it's like I think it was Shakespeare said, life is no good nor bad, thinking just makes it so. So there's nothing wrong with anyone. There's nothing wrong with anything. Like so there's nothing wrong or broken or hurt or there's nothing wrong with anyone. But I kind of look at it like I use a couple analogies. You can use, I'll use a phone first. Like if you've got a phone, you've got, say, programming on this iPhone. I'm holding, for people who aren't listening, I'm holding a phone. So on this phone, there's programming that it comes with, and that programming allows the phone to operate. So, and I talk about like your authentic self and your egoic self, which is the limitations that you download. So there's nothing wrong with this phone judgmentally. It's a good phone. It's a nice phone. It's got a good personality. Now, if this phone downloads a virus, so I go on some naughty websites, download white viruses, and this thing would not operate very well. And the viruses are limiting beliefs, traumas, blocks, energetic shit, stuff you haven't, trauma or wounds. This phone would not operate efficiently to the degree that it could. It doesn't make it a bad phone. It doesn't make it wrong. It's just not it does not working at its full capacity.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the analogies I like to use. It's like a recipe. If you have a recipe for a delicious cake, it's not a good nor bad cake. It's a yummy cake. It's a delicious cake. You could have a recipe for a piece of shit cake, and there's no wrong. You can fucking eat a shit cake if you want. I don't want that. So there's nothing wrong with anyone. There's no one is broken. It's just you are operating out of the conditioning, the programming that you have within your beliefs, within your mind, your subconscious mind, your ego, and you're either carrying or working through the wounds and trauma, which for me is just moments in time where something was too much or not enough. And then you create coping strategies and all that stuff. And there's no right nor wrong. There's no universal law saying there's anything wrong with you, there's anything right with you. Just life is, and
Mhm.
thinking just makes it so. So yeah, no one's broken. No one needs fixing. It's just your life, and you probably use these words is your external world is a reflection of your internal world. Like you create and project externally from what's happening internally. And if
Mhm.
you're happy with your life, fucking keep rocking. But if you're like, I'm miserable, I'm lonely, I'm triggered like a motherfucker, I keep attracting narcissists, I've got a closed heart, I'm not happy, I'm not fulfilled, then maybe it's time to actually look at within and see what's going on, what's going on underneath the hood. And if you want to fix it, and again, I try to hold myself back from using the word fix because that implies there's something wrong.
Mhm.
But it's just upgrading. It's like there's nothing wrong with the phone having a virus. I'll just rather not have a virus. I'd rather have a phone without a virus. So yeah, they're probably my thoughts and a couple of analogies that sort of speak to that.
Yeah, I really love that. And to even add to what you just said, Lewis, like I think there is this, what I have seen anyway, especially like in London, and not so much in Gold Coast, I didn't see this, but in London, it's like this thing of like, well, if nothing's wrong, I don't need to do anything. Like I don't need to work on myself because like I don't have anything wrong with me. I'm not depressed. And it's like this black and white type of thinking. But I think with high
Yeah.
achievers, high performers, we constantly crave evolution. So no matter like if you have a shit cake recipe and you've enjoyed that for most of the years of your life, right? the thing with high performers is they're never satisfied. Like they're grateful, they're happy, right? But at the end of the day, we'll always know there's more potential for us to achieve. And so this work allows us to unlock that. And I think that's just like a closed loop for this conversation that we're having right now, is that we're always wanting that evolution, not necessarily to be fixed, but grow.
100%. And the words that sort of came up for me then, I talk about values all the time. It's like my most common used topic. It's the first thing I teach. It's the first thing that's in the book. But your values, your values are areas of life that intrinsically fulfill you the most. And whenever you hear the words have to, ought to, got to, should, must, supposed to, or some version of that, someone is projecting their values onto someone else. And you, like you said, you don't have to do jack shit. You don't have to heal. You don't have to be on this podcast right now. Or whoever's listening, you don't have to be listening to it. Thank you for listening to this podcast. But
Thank you.
you do. Yeah, thank you so much as well. But it's like, what do you want to do? It's like, what are you inspired to do? And me and my partner are super aware of this, and like, never happens anymore. It will from randomly pop up, but early on when we first started getting together and we learned about the stuff and understood the stuff, it's like we'd pull each other up. She's like, "Oh, I've got to go to this friend's lunch." According to who? Where's the fucking law saying you got to do that? You're just, if you don't want to fucking go, don't fucking go. Like, if you don't want to heal, don't heal. It's all good. Again, it's just like you were saying, high achievers and growth driven individuals often, I wouldn't say often, I'd say all the time, if you want to grow, like that's a part of it. It's like a prerequisite. You have to find parts of yourself to upgrade, to elevate, to expand, to get access to more of who you are. So yeah, you don't have to grow, but if you want to, it's fun.
Yeah, it's like an athlete, right? Who's wanting to run faster. Like if they're not hitting the best time every single training session, they're going to look at their numbers, look at how they're running, like their strides, their arms, like biomechanics, like they're going to look at every single thing that's going on and figure out, okay, what can I improve and optimize to make myself run faster? And that's kind of like what we do in like almost inner work type of way, right? So, Lewis, you mentioned like the physical,
Yeah.
emotional,
Yeah.
mental, spiritual bodies, right? Now, for the listeners, I think a lot of people would be tuning into this being like, well, I thought I just had one body, right? So, I'd love for you to share some examples of things that are not performing efficiently in these areas so that, or like symptoms that one could be experiencing like such as a virus metaphorically
Yep.
in these areas that may allow for people listening to go, oh, I should look into this a bit more.
Yeah, beautiful question. So my main realm of the work I do is mainly mental and emotional. So they're the ones I can speak as deep into this. Like I'm
Right.
not a shaman, so I can't speak too much into plant medicine. I do take it myself, but I'm not going to claim I'm a fucking
Cool,
shaman
yeah,
because
that's
I'm
cool.
certainly
I've done some
far,
plant
far
medicine
from it.
episodes as well. So
Yeah,
yeah, that's cool.
perfect. So symptoms of where I guess you've got work to do essentially. So the quote that probably sums the broadness of this, and then we can zoom in on it, is the degree that you resist reality is the degree that you suffer. And then my quote off the back end of that is you will attract people and circumstances to trigger where you haven't healed. So whenever you're triggered, so there's trauma, there's coping strategies, and then there's triggers. So a trauma for me, a mental trauma, is a moment in time when something was too much or not enough,
Mm.
where too much pain, criticism, abuse, whatever. And then you've got not enough love, presence, being safe, being held, being loved, all that stuff. So there's a moment in time that happens, and that's why we generally have more in childhood because that's where your sensitivity is just higher. Something that's traumatic to a 5-year-old may not be traumatic to a 25-year-old. And then you've got a coping strategy of how you deal with it, and then a trigger essentially activates it. So say you got rejected when you were younger, and that made you avoid and shut down. And then now when you experience rejection or perceive rejection or someone rejects you, you avoid and shut down. So the best way I look at is your triggers reveal where you haven't healed. So where are you triggered? That's the first part. Where do you get triggered? That will happen most in your intimate relationships because they see more depths to you than anyone else. My wife gets to see me more than anyone else. She gets to see me when I'm fucking stressed, when financial things happen, when I haven't slept properly, when I'm sick, when I'm vomiting, when the dog's pissed on the carpet. Like gets to see all shades of Lewis. So just by proximity, she's just going to shine light on the parts of me that I haven't worked through yet.
Mm.
So that's probably the big mental part. Now, it can be other bodies that are being triggered then, Then I would lean into the emotional part. The emotional body is when you just have stored emotions in your body. It becomes more intuitive when you go down this pathway. So it probably requires a little bit more work to sort of tune into that. Like, as an example, I received a kahuna massage. So that's a somatic emotional releasing massage, essentially. So it's a physical massage to release stored emotions. And it was really beautiful. And it's like a very intimate, beautiful healing experience. And I've dislocated my right knee about 8 times back in the football days. That was one of the reasons I stopped playing because I got sick of the fucking injuries. But anyways, like when she started to go towards my knee, I instantly felt anxiety. Like I felt physical anxiety come through my body because it's obviously past stored emotions from the pain, the physical trauma that I've been through. And she literally would breathe into it and she's like, breathe it out. And I'm like, starting to breathe. I started like shaking, getting a fucking massage. And I did this to experience what it was like. And I was like, literally breathing and letting out of this anxiety from my knee. And then after the massage, there was less sensitivity in my knee because I'd stored that emotion physically in my body. So where do you get like emotional tension? Could be another way you can look into it. Again, most of my work's on the mental part. So I'm mainly looking for where's the trigger, where's that coming from, and it'll be a belief or a trauma. That's generally my modalities and what I deal with. I do meditations. I did a healing practice today with my community, and I get them to actually just sit. We do a breath work, we drop in, tune in, and I get them to bring awareness to the body. And I say, what emotion in your body wants to be felt? And just feel it. All fear is the fear of feeling. We suppress emotions because we're too scared to fucking feel it, or we've been trained to not feel it because men don't cry or whatever shit you've been told when you're younger. So people just don't close the loop off of emotion. They start to feel anxious or they haven't got the space or the resources to fully feel it. So they suppress it. And then you've suppressed that shit into your body, into your nervous system, into your physical body. So just honestly bringing awareness of like, so for me, I'm a lot more sensitive than I was. When I say sensitive, in tuned sensitivity in terms of my emotional body. So I remember there was it's like a running joke with me and my wife. We've got a sauna at home, great investment for like sweat, meditation, and regulation. And it's like whenever I have a sauna, I'll generally come up and like unload on her. I'll be like, oh my God, babe, all this shit came up because I'll go in the sauna and meditate and I'll process my shit. But I just remember like I just had a busy day, like a sorry, busy week. It was a Friday. It's a Friday now. I've had a pretty chilled week this week, but I think it was like a month or two ago. This one just kind of stands out, but I was just like, had a lot of things come up, a lot of triggers come up, a lot of things come up. Had a client ask for a refund. Like I just had a lot of things and thing that just threw me.
Mm,
And I just felt shit. Like I just felt like tired. I felt lethargic. I felt anxious.
mm,
And I'm like, fuck, I just want to work. I just want to feel through this. So like that emotional feedback can be feedback for you. So they're probably the main ones. If I was to speak into the spiritual body for me, my understanding of it is your level of connectedness with source. So how connected and present do you feel? Do you feel like you're on purpose? Do you feel like you're connected with life and you're one with life? Or do you feel super disconnected and you feel like you're the ego? That's very much obviously a trait of the ego, but that's where maybe a spiritual journey is up your alley. So triggers is the main one I use, and triggers for me reveal wounds or limiting beliefs, and then you lean into it, dissolve through it. If you've got physical emotion, physical pain, like in areas of your body where it's like, I'm not injured, I'm not like overtraining, I just have this pain in this body part, it might be stored fucking trauma, like stored emotions that are in your body. Or for me, just stored emotions in your nervous system. They're like kind of the big. I haven't been asked this question, so I appreciate the question. So those would be like the symptoms I'm generally looking for. But like I said, I generally deal with the mental and the emotional. I don't really do too much physical and spiritual. But yeah, that's what I'd be looking.
I love it. I love it so much because it really ties in with a lot of the work that I teach as well. Like for me, I do have more interest around like the physical and spiritual and how our emotions are stored in the body. Like I remember from my own personal training days, like before I even was consciously aware that this stuff existed and thought that I was spiritual, like for so long I projected on that sort of realm and thought that it was a bit woo and I was weird to even think about it. And still yet subconsciously I would always be curious on like what my clients were going through emotionally and how this can actually show up as injuries in the body. And this is why I'm so passionate about working with athletes now, because it's like these consistent injuries, the media can be like, oh, that's just bad luck. But I'm like, no, 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 this is actually you just creating it. And we can also just like rewire a few things to avoid this happening again and again in your future. Like aligning your conscious with your subconscious is so powerful.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. I
Yeah.
love everything you're saying. Joe Dispenza really comes to mind. Like he's just such a great example because he's got just all the data and research to back it. Like he's
Yeah.
actually doing all of it to back up what he's saying. But like he has, for people that don't know his name, give him a quick search. But Dr. Joe Dispenza, like I've got his book right next to me. It's actually a similar name to your book. So
Yeah.
it actually triggered me when you said that.
Yeah.
Becoming supernatural. But like he has people that like literally have, well, his story, he had a broken back, a physical broken back, and healed it through mindfulness, through meditations, through embodiment work. And he has blind people seeing, deaf people hearing, paraplegic standing up, people with like chronic pains, chronic injuries, healing them, like spontaneous remissions, like on repeat, but they're like everything you're saying, I totally love it. That's why I love the space that you're in.
Thank you. And same to you. So for people that are listening and that are curious about, okay, all right, Lewis, Elise, I'm going to start doing some inner work. Like, what would you say has been the most transformative framework that you have used to get a massive breakthrough, or one that you really remember going like, holy shit, this changed my life? And it could be a perspective shift. It could be
Yeah,
anything.
beautiful. Look, yeah, perfect, perfect. Like the first one obviously comes to mind. Like it's kind of like where you get started. It's like kind of like your first love, your first time having sex. It like just kind of embedded in there. So Tony Robbins was my gateway. I say Tony Robbins is the gateway drug to self-development. So he was
Literally, yeah.
fantastic. And Tony, I love Tony, but and not bagging Tony, but it's like Tony, like I said, very like great to get started and get you into it. But depending, I guess, where your heart's drawn to and what you want to work through, there is a lot more depth to delve into. So Tony was my gateway drug. So I started with him. I worked with him 9 years ago. I went to UPW, his event in Australia, did the firewalk, made the move, we did a limiting belief process essentially. That's when I got exposed to beliefs, and that was fantastic. So that was the first one. So that obviously stands out. DeMartini was probably, yeah, he would probably be up there. So John DeMartini teaches perceptions and an imbalancing perception. So trauma is a lopsided perception where you're not seeing the full balance and divine perfectness of the present moment. So he is definitely fantastic. I'm actually doing my DeMartini certification on Wednesday. So like 6 days from now, well, it's 5 days from now. So I'm spending 5 days with the big man. So that's
Wow.
exciting. So I'm really pumped for that.
Amazing.
Thank you. And it's hard to say the next one because I have a process. It's called the balance. It's called my balancing process. It's in the book. It's in the work that I do, and it's using parts of DeMartini plus the other bodies. So it's actually DeMartini. I love DeMartini, but very mental. It's very very mental. It's very much what's go to the moment. Where's the benefits? Get clear on the benefits. See the divine perfection. So very mental, very very mental. Where I like to incorporate the emotional body because that's where I think I'm a lot stronger or also strong. So it's like my process is the one that I love the most, and just obviously biased because I can use it. But breathwork's been fantastic. I've done breathwork sessions, been amazing. I'm a plant medicine fanatic. I love plant medicine, and when I say that, I do it every 4 to 6 months. I'm not cracking it out every weekend, but every 4 to 6 months, just to have a drop in and a realignment session. So yeah, if I had to give like maybe Tony got me started, so he obviously stands out. DeMartini was a huge, like just like super next level break depth. I've done NLP, timeline therapy, hypnotherapy, and all those things. But again, they're all tools to go into the toolbox. So like ultimate martial artists, they're just all different tools you can use. Breathwork, I'm doing my breathwork certification next weekend. So not this weekend, next weekend. So that's been awesome. Yeah, those would probably be the main ones. I did Reiki healing. That was great to experience it and definitely like open my world up to more of the energetic work, which it sounds like that's where your magic is. I did sound healing. I didn't get a lot out of sound healing personally. I know some people love it, and my partner's actually leaning more into it. So I'm excited for her to do it more to me. I've only done it once before, so I want
Yeah.
actually twice. So I have tried that. I didn't like have like a oh my god breakthrough, fucking holy shit, like life's completely changed. But I know some people have. But yeah, trying to think of all the ones I'm done. But yeah, Tony, kick me off. DeMartini, breathwork would probably go in there, and meditation. Sorry, plant medicine and meditation. I'd whack that in there as well. So there's a top five for you.
Okay. So I have two questions then from that. The first one, I just want to like a short, brief, like answer just to close the loop because I know plant medicine would spark up a few questions for people listening. So when you say plant medicine, like what specifically and like what are like the benefits that you have received from that or the known like general scientific benefits? Because I think a lot of people listening would potentially be a little bit curious about that. And
Yeah,
then I
perfect.
wanted to close with your like top three steps to like figuring out, okay, what are the blocks or how to overcome those blocks?
Yep, let's go to plant medicine. So I've done mushrooms. I don't know the specific mushroom. I'm kind of like, I don't go too detailed with that. I'm like, yeah, give it to me. Let's do it. So I don't know the specific blend that I've taken, but psilocybin mushroom. So I've done that, I think 7 times is the
Hmm.
number coming to me. I've done ayahuasca. I've
Hmm.
only done one journey with that. It's just the time investment. Like it's a big, not like I like mushrooms, get in, get the trip, and you can come back to planet Earth. But
Yeah.
like you got to go sit, you get to go sit into ceremony and do the full shebang. And it's just a bit time intensive for me, but some people love it and that's fantastic. So I've done, and I did harpe before that. That's more of a cleansing
Hmm.
beforehand. That rocked me. Holy shit. That
Yeah.
absolutely rocked me. That purging, not good. Anyway, so those are the medicines I've sat with and journeyed with. These are the two analogies that I think for me describe psychedelics really well. Go watch a couple documentaries. One is Fantastic Fungi. That is a fantastic documentary, and it's all about mushrooms and the power of mushrooms. Really, really cool. And there's another one that's slipping my mind, but it will come back to me at some point. So these are the two analogies. First one. So if there's a certain level of electricity running through someone's house, so right now there's, I'm assuming you're in a house, but you've got like a spacey background, so I don't know where you
Yeah.
are. You're in space. So,
I'm in the universe.
uh, you're in the universe, baby. We all are, right? You're not a drop in the ocean. You're the ocean in a drop, right? So,
Yeah.
anyways, so whoever's in a house right now, you've got a certain amount of electricity like pulsing through your house right now, as circuits going through your house. Now you've got a phone. If I was to plug my phone into that circuitry and all of the electricity would shoot straight into my phone, what would happen to the phone? It'd fucking blow up. It's way too much electricity for it. So you have a charger, a charging port, or a reducer that you plug into the wall. Now our mind has a natural level of reducer for the level of consciousness and information it can download. So right now there are certain frequencies, and I don't know how to explain it because again, it's not my world, but this is my knowledge of it. But there's a level of frequency and information passing through you right now. Like there's electromagnetic waves going past you right now. There's radio waves. There's money getting transferred, billions of dollars of electricity transferring around the world right now. You just can't see it. You can't feel it. So for me, a psychedelic is like knocking the reducer out of the way. So you just have this insane fucking attached connection and download of consciousness. So you have all of these thoughts, beliefs, and downloads of who you are, what your purpose is, where you want to go, what like all of this shit. And that's very much an ego death because you just kind of it's just like knocking the reducer out for a period of time. So that's the first analogy. Second analogy is a dune of sand. If you were to walk over it, walk like along that dune, it would make an imprint into the dune, right? If you walk over that 100 times, it makes the indent very, very deep. Those are our beliefs. So I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not. It makes it really, really, really deep. And you've obviously got million beliefs. Now, a psychedelic, when you introduce it, it's like smoothing that sand over. It's like a sandstorm comes through and smooths it over. So you can rewrite and reprogram your mind really fucking easily. So this is where you can let go of shit. Like I did a session with a friend of mine and he just came out of it and it's like, holy shit, like, because he had a lot of body image stuff. And he just like came out of it. It's like, I hadn't seen him without a shirt off. He took his shirt off for like first time and I've been friends with him for years. So I'm like, oh man, it's like, bro, like, I just don't care anymore. It's like all it was obviously still kind of coming down from it. So it was really funny, but it just like wipes all those beliefs out. So this is why like MDMA therapy is I don't research it, but I've seen it pop up. But I know that's coming back into the world of things. But yeah, it allows you to just rewrite beliefs really easily, so you can heal through trauma easily. You can open your level of consciousness. Hence, why I said the spiritual body is like your level of connectedness. So it kind of opens the channel more, so you can feel more connected with life, with source, with consciousness, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, those are my two analogies for plant medicine. Again, not my forte necessarily, but I'm a raving fan of it personally. So does that answer
Cool.
your first question?
Yes, it does. And then the second question was for listeners wanting to do this work, what is like three easy steps for them to be like overcoming maybe a potentially a limiting belief that they know they have right now?
So, as in the steps of how do you find a belief and get rid of it, or how do you find the right person to work with to do it? What do you mean? Or I can answer
I
both.
I would say first on your own, right? And if they're needing help, then obviously it would be to reach out to a coach,
Gotcha.
facilitator. But if
Gotcha.
someone's just trying
Yeah.
to like kind of start into this space and they want to do it on their own, what are the three things that they should do to get started on that inner work journey?
Yeah, perfect. First thing is awareness. It's you can't be held accountable to something you're not aware of. So upping your awareness of where do you have resistance? Where do you get triggered? So like say, for example, you've got a belief that you're ugly, you're stupid, you're not enough or something like that. And then someone says, oh, you should start posting content to build your business and to get an audience and all that stuff. And then you have resistance to posting that. You get nervous, you get anxious, or whatever. There's resistance. So there would be something underneath it. So again, to the degree you resist reality is the degree that you suffer. So I'm constantly looking out for resistance and triggers. So, and they are the same thing. Just a trigger, most people think is like a shock, like you fucking, yeah, your nervous system activates and you freak out. It's the same. A resistance is just like kind of more drawn out. It's like not as like a sudden jolt, but they're the same thing. So where do you have resistance? Where do you get triggered? Become aware of that. What triggers you the most will heal you the most if you do what I'm talking about now. So say when you get triggered next, tune into it. Now it gets a little bit deeper, so hopefully I'll get it across. When you're triggered, it's either a wound, a trauma, or a limiting belief. It can be both because they can go together, or it can be one or the other. Let's use an example. Say you got rejected when you were younger from, let's just use rejection for this. So you got rejected when you were younger, and that's a traumatic event that you've went through. So, say someone does something to make you feel rejected, you'll get triggered. Or if you get into a position where you think you could get rejected, you'll self-sabotage and pull yourself back. That's where the self-sabotage patterns come into it. So in that case, it could be a trauma, but from that event as well, from that moment where you got rejected, you can come up with beliefs. I'm not enough. I'm stupid. I'm lonely. Life is hard. I'm not worth it, or whatever. You can have all these beliefs. This is where NLP actually hits a bit of a roadblock because a lot of people may handle all those beliefs, but they haven't actually healed the trauma yet. So the wound is still there. So you still get triggered by it and you still have the coping strategy from it. So it can be one or both. So that's a kind of a both analogy or example where you can have just conditioning. You can just say it's just a conditioning that you got downloaded when you were in your childhood and your upbringing that money is evil. It's like you didn't have like some big ass traumatic event around money. It was just like it just always got said in the household that money was no good, money is evil, don't trust people with money, all people with money are assholes. And that was just your conditioning. So it's not like a moment in time where it was like, holy shit, that was traumatic. It's just that's a belief I've downloaded through the conditioning and my experiences through life. So back to step one, be aware where you have resistance and triggers, and then do your best to figure out, is this a trauma or is this a belief? Now, I'm going to stay with beliefs just because that's the question that you asked. Let's say it's a belief. So, okay, I believe I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not good with money. I don't deserve love. Love is scary. Whatever yours is. Life is scary. I had a client with that this morning. Then I get the client to find what was the first memory you have of this belief. And then you'll go back to childhood. It's generally between the ages of 3 to 10. That's the most common age. Later than that, it's normally a trigger of the belief. It's like a reference of that belief, not when it was downloaded. You can have later ones, but generally it's between 3 to 10. You get to that moment and you get them to ask, okay, and there's a set of processes. You just said 3 steps. So the third step, be aware you're triggered. 2, find the trigger. 3, heal through the trigger. So if I was to put into 3 steps, there's the 3 steps. And how to heal through it, I use an ego dissolving process. I took clients through it this morning, where you just recognize and you get your own ego to recognize it's not real. So I get them to find references of it not being true. I do a stupid analogy. I say, if I was to cut you open like a doctor, would I find a manufacturing stamp inside of you with your name and this belief saying that you're not enough? The answer is obviously fucking no. Why? You weren't born with it. So if you've given me 3 references of this not being true and you weren't born with it, what does it tell you about this belief? Great. It's not true. Then the magic question, how does your life change with this belief not there? And then they step out of the belief into a life without that belief there, and their nervous system recalibrates. They start crying. I had people doing that this morning. So that's kind of the depth on how to get rid of it. But be aware where you're triggered. Find what's coming up. So find what it's revealing and then do a process on what it's revealing would be the 3 steps.
That is so beautiful. I love it so much. So for the listeners that may have like experienced some sort of resistance around like putting themselves out there in case they got rejected, for example, then noticing that resistance, going back in time and asking yourself, okay, well, when was the first time that I experienced this? How old was I? Yeah. And then going back in time to that version of yourself, looking into yourself, being like, okay, well, that belief that I had back then to probably protect yourself, right? Does that actually still ring true right now? And then looking at the flip side of the perspective, okay, why could this not be true? And then looking at other examples of in your life how you have been good enough or you didn't get rejected, correct?
Yep, spot on. And you're obviously in this world, so you're picking it up very, very well. So it's just find where the download point was, because I always say I've never met a baby whose first words were "I'm not enough," and no one else has ever met a baby who
That's
says
so
that.
good. Yeah.
But because we're born limitless, but we're programmed out of it. This is the statue of David again. So you're born as the statue of David, but then you pick up all those pieces that aren't you, and the game is to remove the parts that aren't you.
Mm.
So you're born limitless, but then you're programmed out of it that you're not enough. Life is scary. I'm not worthy. I'm ugly. I'm stupid. I can't do this. Whatever this shit is. So it's going back to where did it get downloaded? Recognize it's not an absolute truth. I use the term a universal truth. So you find where it hasn't been consistent, recognize that you weren't born with it, and then experience life without it. And then you just feel like lightness, freedom, tears, peace, abundance, limitless comes back into you. And then the last question when I do that process is, what belief replaces this belief? In other words, what was underneath that belief? And
Yeah.
then your true, authentic self shines through. When your light shines brightest, you let it shine freely, let's remove that limitation and let your light shine through.
Mhm. Oh, beautiful. I love it so, so much. Very similar to how I like facilitate as well. So I'm really glad that I had you on today, Lewis. Before I do wrap up
Thank you.
today, because I want to be mindful of your time, tell us about your book. Like you've mentioned it throughout this whole episode, but I want to hear like what's it called? When's it coming out? When can we read it? Because it sounds amazing.
Thank you, and thank you for the time. It's obviously awesome to dance with someone who can handle the dancing. Because some people, it's like, what's a belief? So it's cool to dance with someone at your level, my love. So it's been really fun. So the book, it's called The Inspired Life Method. So it's essentially, and the heading to that is find your life's purpose, heal your trauma, create a life that you love. So it's essentially everything I'm talking about in a book where we go through three pillars: self mastery, that's your values, and values are areas of life that intrinsically drive you. A lot of people have misperception of values, but I won't go into that today. What's your life purpose? I have a purpose process. I'll take you through it. Craft your authentic mission and vision. Because most people wearing a mask persona live into other people's projections, have to, ought to, got to, must, should. And therefore they're creating a vision for them that's not theirs. And that's where a midlife crisis comes up. My most common client is a midlife crisis. That's a very common trend of my clients because they live their whole life, live into someone else's projections, have to, ought to, got to, should. And then even they become an underachiever and don't get there anyways. But if they're an overachiever, they'll get there. But then they're fucking unhappy anyways because they're not being themselves. So self mastery is first. Then I normally go to inner work second, sorry, after that with clients. But in the book, just because of the way I've written the book, I actually do the third pillar second, which is skills and strategies. Now, skills and strategies is too broad to put everything into a book because obviously there's skills for everything: how to build a landing page, how to market, how to sell, how to mow your lawns, how to change a tire. Like there's infinite amount of skills. So the only skills we do go through is planning. So how do you actually take your mission and vision, which is a 5 to 10 year goal, and break it into an actionable plan? So we go mission, which is 5 to 10 years, 3 years, 2 years, 12 months, quarter, month, week, and day. So we break it all down into actionable steps so you know what the fuck you're doing and how to move forward. And we also go through how much money do you need to earn to live your vision practically, like cash dollars, and what vehicle or business model or career pathway do you need to take that will allow you to get there. Because if I want to travel from Australia to come see you in London, I'm probably not going to get there in a car. That vehicle will not let me get to my destination. So you need the appropriate vehicle, which is probably a business model, or investments or a certain career pathway that will allow you to get the thing that you want. And then we get into inner work and we do a limiting belief process. So I take you through the ego dissolving process. So you guys will see my process in there. We do the balancing process, which is what I'm referring to today as well. So that's how you find your trauma and actually heal through that. And it's a fucking beautiful process. Only 60% of the process is in the book because it's hard. Like I try to condense it as much as I could because I teach it through videos and spreadsheets and shit like that. So it's hard to get into a book, but I did my best to get the juiciest parts of it in there. And then 2 meditations. So I actually give you 2 meditations on how to process emotions, stored emotions, and also how to create your vision, very sort of Joe Dispensary. What's your vision? Feel that, be that person now. So you've got those meditations in there. So self-mastery, skills and strategies, and inner work in a book. That's pretty much it. And it comes out October 18th.
Okay, so everyone, October 18, we're going to link all of Lewis's socials in the show notes. So if you're wanting to tune in and make sure that you get your hands on his book, then yeah, make sure you give him a follow and head over to his page. He posts some incredible stuff. Now, before we close today, Lewis, I just have one last question for you. Are you ready?
Please
Okay.
go far away.
So If you were to channel or focus on the first thing that comes to your heart when I ask, what do the listeners need to hear right now, the collective consciousness, what do they need to hear from you? What would that be?
You are on your right path. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. You are beautiful. You are enough, and you are loved.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Thank you for being a part of the Generation Elevation community. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to leave a 5-star rating, written review, share, and tag me on Instagram at elise.riley. Until next time, keep loving, keep learning, and keep rising.